who is always so much fun, and now Travis Yost from TSN, another great guest through the years we have not had the pleasure of chatting with in a while. Or have you and Bulldog been talking privately, Travis? What is the story?
Constantly. He won't leave me alone. He's all up in my DMs, this Travis.
And we have all this spare time too. We just catch up daily, yeah.
Yes.
We compare cardio exercise routines. Yeah. Me on my bike, Travis with his running.
That's
it.
Yeah. I fully understand not being in on that on the group chat. All right, Travis. Well, welcome to the finals, a rematch, great teams, and a great opener. What is there to say about Florida, Edmonton that hasn't maybe been said already or often enough?
Man, you know what it is? I'll say a couple things. Number one, not every championship rematch is something you necessarily want to see, right. But I actually think this is a pretty good one. It's hard to look back at where the playoffs started and not have these two teams as two of the five-ish most likely teams to appear in the Stanley Cup. That's number one. Number two, I think from like a matchup dynamic standpoint, it's fascinating because, you know, I have all the respect in the world for the Carolina Hurricanes, and I thought Dallas was a fantastic team, and neither one of them offered up much in the conference finals. Now, yes, you could re-simulate that series and maybe it's closer, but the sheer depth and capabilities of Florida down the lineup. I mean, I wrote this week about how unbelievable their middle six forward group is. It's one of the best middle six forward groups I've seen in some time in Florida. Against this absolute juggernaut two-headed monster that it seems impossible to keep McDavid and Draisaitl off a score sheet. It's kind of funny. Earlier, about a month ago, I was catching flack, as usual, from Maple Leafs fans who didn't like how critical I was of their core forwards and specifically how frequently they disappear in the playoffs. And, one of the common arguments I got is, well, it's so much harder to score in the playoffs. I'm like, not really. Not in the last 10, 15 years. No, it's not. You got Nikita Kucherov, Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl. You go down and down the list. A lot of these guys score at or above their regular season rates. I am blown away at how dynamic they are. There's very little I could say that's refreshing or new in the McDavid Draisaitl, how dominant they are as a tandem. But man, like if you watch last night's game, like Florida looked fantastic through stretches, and still there really is no answer when a team has probably the two best players in the world on the same team. I think this is going to be a great series. I think Florida has answers. I think they have a goaltending advantage, which kind of neutralizes some of it. But there was a reason this series was a pick-em. It wasn't because the talent was even on paper. It was because McDavid and Draisaitl they are the ultimate erasers. I mean, you can run three lines. You can run a terrible third pairing. They are able to erase almost anything.
I think McDavid, I've been thinking about this in this way, Travis, and Mike, I haven't mentioned this to Mike yet, that McDavid is more unlike maybe any other superstar player. Maybe Mario is the only other one that might compare to me to the point I'm about to make, where someone who's barely ever a very casual hockey fan, like knows about the sport but doesn't really follow it. I feel like most of the other superstars of the last 30, 40, 50 years, you would turn on a game and they might just sort of blend in. Like they might score the goals, but like watching the game, you wouldn't immediately have it be apparent to you who the guy is, right? McDavid, the way he moves around the ice, the speed with which he attacks and handles the puck at the same time, I think that stands out more than maybe anyone I've ever watched play hockey.
I not only do I totally agree, I have struggled. I was actually asked this question a couple months ago. I think it was in Winnipeg radio. We were talking about the Oilers, and the only comparable player that I can come up with that has such a, first off, just an otherworldly talent, right? So you're talking maybe two handfuls of guys at best. First ballot generational Hall of Fame player. The only thing that you can even remotely denote on McDavid's record is that he hasn't won a cup yet, by the way, and the strong emphasis on yet. The only player that I can think of that I can draw a line and say these two guys, they connect in a way that makes sense to me, and it's going to sound funny. It's LeBron James, and it is. it's when you watch LeBron in his prime, not only was he the most magnetic player on the court, whether he had the ball or whether he was spacing in the offensive zone or he was defending, your eyes were on him no matter what. That's number one. Number two, at any moment, he can break the game wide open. And number three, most importantly, the physical attribute sliders are just to 99. Now, with LeBron, it's a little more size, strength, speed, like this combo package of insanity, whereas McDavid, it skews a little bit more towards speed and agility specifically, but it's not like he's a tiny guy either. I mean, He can play with real force. LeBron is the only player I can come up with where I can say, whether you're a casual fan or a hardcore hockey fan, I can say, the guy who McDavid most resembles is blank. For me, that's LeBron, which sounds crazy. But, McDavid starts winning cups. I don't think that's going to sound crazy anymore.
I don't think it sounds crazy. We all know the difference between the two sports and how much less control the very best player on the ice has over a hockey game than the basketball comparison. Can I throw out one more name? I don't think it's better than these names, but when I close my eyes and think of a McDavid play, he's going end to end. He's going right through you. He's too fast for the defense to adjust, and it's over. And to me, there's a Lindros quality to that. But Lindros, was huge and not the same quite skill level. But that's his play for me, is he's just going right up the middle, and you can't deal. So, not quite on the same level.
Eric Lindros is a great one. Slightly bigger, no doubt. Played a little more physical. But, the way he could single-handedly dominate the flow of the game, I think that's 1-to-1. I know this is also going to sound a little weird, but, if someone put Ilya Kovalchuk in a lab and said, actually, we're going to take your speed to 99 and then recreate you, that would be Ilya Kovalchuk would be another version of that. Kind of in the Lindros argument where it's this guy, wherever he is on the ice, can go end to end at any point. There's nothing you can do. And Kovalchuk did that in his prime. Lindros made a career of it. Injuries obviously kind of broke down the back end of it. But I think the point is this that we're all saying, right? There really is no 1-to-1 clean comparable for this guy because he is that good. He is that dominant. I even watch him in comparison, and I say this with the utmost respect and deference to Leon Draisaitl, who I think is the second best player in the world. And I ask myself, how big of a talent gap is there between those two?
Yeah.
I don't think it's insignificant. I think McDavid is that much better than Draisaitl, which is an insane thing to say.
Yeah, right. I'll add to the insanity. Draisaitl is more of an ordinary superstar. I feel like I've seen guys like Draisaitl, throughout my life. McDavid, I just don't think there's ever been anyone like him.
I think the messaging too, and I know we've beaten the NHL up many times over. The league, I know Edmonton's kind of this niche market for Americans and U.S. hockey fans. It's kind of like this town in the city in Alberta that doesn't have a sports team other than a hockey team. ESPN, TNT, the NHL should have this guy front and center 24/7, 365. The same way the NBA did it with LeBron and Curry, the same way the NFL does it with their superstars. I know it feels a little different because the NHL is not this type of league where it is so star-specific driven, but he really is a unicorn like this in all of the right ways. And to me, even when I have casual friends who just check in for the Stanley Cup for that matter, and I'm sure you guys saw it last night, whether it's your Twitter timeline, which, by the way, that was a fun read today. You check it out. You check it out last night, and you just see random football personalities. What is going on with this number 97?
Right.
He's different.
I love with my daughter's teams and her tournaments. If there's a 97, that's the number now. If there's a 97 on the other team,
look out for that person.
Look out, and they better live up to it. I mean, you can't just go pick 97 if you're not if you're not capable of taking the game over. With Travis Yost from TSN here on WGR. Leaf fans getting into you, and they think you're from Toronto. You're supposed to be on their side, Travis. I'm sure that's still part of that discourse. Anyway.
I get killed, man. I get killed. They say first off, if I write anything positive about Toronto, and I will tell you, you can go read, 11-year catalog, 12-year catalog now with TSN. I've got plenty of Austin Matthews, one of the greatest players in the world, type articles, and comparing his early, mid-career trajectory to Ovechkin and the like. And there's plenty of that out there. But if you ever point out that these guys are routinely and reliably playoff underperformers, it's like you said the worst thing on the planet. And the part I don't really understand is I have never made the, well, they lost, so it must be bad argument. It's like statistically, the guys at the top of the lineup that you see dominate every regular season, and it's incapable of slowing their offense down for long stretches during the regular season. They disappear about as reliably as you can find. I don't think it's James Harden NBA bad, but it's pretty close. I mean, and you can go one by one. I think the one guy who's kind of built his reputation back is a Will Nylander.
Mm-hmm.
But Mitch Marner has worn this for years, probably reasonably so. John Tavares has come under a little bit of scrutiny recently. Obviously, the players, Kyle Dubas, the coaching staff changes, those guys directly wore it. But for some reason, when you bring Matthews into the fold, it's like, well, now it's a bridge too far. And it's like, I don't really think it is. Like, I think you have to have standards for these insanely good players. And when I watch McDavid or Barkov or Draisaitl and on and on and on, these guys routinely impress in the postseason, whether their team wins or loses. It's very hard to make an argument that these guys are the reason their team loses, whereas in the case of Toronto, it is a frequent argument that these big goal differentials that they build up over the regular season, we won the division, they get into the playoffs, and they're barely breaking even against first or second round competition. I mean, that is a fundamental change, and until the Maple Leafs figure that out, it's going to remain that way. And I do think this is going to be, finally, I think this is going to be the summer where you see real change. And I do think if I were a betting man come October, whatever opening night day is, I don't think Mitch Marner is on the Maple Leafs. I think this is a ripcord they're ready to pull now.
At this point, I'd be stunned if he were on the Maple Leafs.
Totally agree.
The way it reads, yeah.
When are any of these Sabres going to produce in the playoffs? You know, that's the thing. When is our team going to at least get that test? I don't know.
Well, if they finally do make it, then we could have maybe 14 years of needing to learn how to win in the playoffs, as opposed to just learning how to win, in general.
Yeah.
Can I make a request? Can I make a placeholder request before I answer?
Please, go ahead. When
the Sabres make it, I'm 35, coming on 36 now. When the Sabres qualify for the playoffs, might be next year, I might be 72 years old. You're going to have me on before Game 1, Round 1, because we're going to be, the excitement is going to be through the roof. Now I will answer your question, which is, when are they going to break through? I'll tell you what they should not do, which I keep reading, and I don't know if it's agent-driven or what. In the pantheon of really bad ideas, I think trading J.J. Peterson really is up there. I mean, I understand that the Sabres need to consistently make. They're not alone, by the way. There are teams in this kind of like the treadmill of mediocrity where, whether you're in this lengthy drought or not, the team isn't playoff ready yet. So you feel like you have to tinker. You feel like you have to invest. I think that's the right thing for any front office. But some ideas are just bad, and I can't for the life of me understand what a J.J. Peterka trade does for this organization. Like, who is the player they're getting that improves this team when you trade Peterka? I mean, if on a rate basis, if you looked at Peterka's production relative to any of his forward peers over the last 2-3 years, he's in the top 2, top third percentile in the entire league. And to me, the question you typically ask in those scenarios is, how do we get this guy more ice time, and how do we get him better line mates, and how do we find the perfect fit for him? Not who can we trade him for, because it's like, okay, and by the way, Dallas is having a similar conversation. I'd say that's a little more cap specific, but like, okay, you're trading Jason Robertson. What are you getting, right? And it's like, I don't really know how this is advancing the team, and it's very hard to make a player for player, not impossible, we've seen it, but it's very hard to make a true player for player trade and net better improve your team unless you really have identified some sort of inefficiency in your lineup, or you think the player across the aisle is being undervalued. It just seems like an idea that's out there, and maybe the agent wants it, maybe the player even wants it, but I don't understand how they improve by trading.
Man, that's such a great point. The Sabres did Middlestat for Byram the year before last, and I mean, respectfully, they gave themselves so much credit for that, and they got some credit for that, but I think it's an example of what you just said. Like, well, we might be a little forward heavy, defense light, but neither guy ends up helping you. I don't know. Not everybody would say that about Byram. and I'm terrified they'll sign him. But
by the way, who's the other name in all these trade discussions right now? If it's not Peterka, it's Bowen Byram. I mean, I saw last week 2 different reports that his name is at least out there on the trade block.
Good.
So how much credit do you really get for a swap that lasted 18 months?
Right, Middlestad's gone too.
To Boston. Travis, on that, it's very hard for me. This is the drought and the reputation of the organization and the general manager being retained for going into a 6th season despite absolutely no success whatsoever of any kind. I feel like any guy that they want to trade, I guess that the speculation comes from inside the house. That because Adams suspects or believes, has been told directly by the player or his agent, I don't want to be a part of this. I'm not signing a 7-year deal with you. I want to go somewhere where you can win the Stanley Cup, whether there's palm trees and taxes or not. And so that's what I think. Like Byram, when asked about wanting to be a part of the future here, sounded about as non-committal as you can possibly sound. I haven't heard from Peterka on the issue, but my guess is that is what is behind it.
First off, I think that's Occam's razor, which sucks. Mm-hmm. But and by the way, I'll say 2 things here. One, the Sabres aren't alone in this. Go read some Brock Besser quotes in Vancouver and see how that exit went. And it's like, Vancouver's letting a really good, second line forward literally walk because of the mismanagement and the inability to develop a contender and everything else that was going on in Vancouver. But it's no different in Buffalo. And I know this is the feedback loop from hell. But until the team starts winning, they are going to continue dealing with this problem. And you saw it with the Bills. That no free agent ever wanted to really sign with the Bills, not a high-end one, unless the money was incredible. And when the money gets too incredible, the team doesn't want to do it. And you really need some sort of franchise game changer. The thing that bothers me about the Sabres, though, and we've talked about this it feels like almost 2 years, you could put on any Sabres game over the last 2 years and watch them play extremely competitive hockey, up-tempo, fast-paced, especially 5-on-5. And then you look at the aggregate results and you're like, this is extremely unimpressive. I actually was – I'm glad you said it. I was surprised that they are letting the front office continue at this point. Some research I've done, actually plenty I've done as I age now, I have completely memory hold and forgot. But one thing I will never forget is – most teams are out of a real rebuild. So I call it at least a bottom 5 finish in a regular season, followed by what you did over the next N number of seasons. Teams that bottom out like that, by and large, have already returned to the playoffs by year 4. And I think it was like 80 to 85% of these teams return to the playoffs by year 5. Here we are in year infinity with the Sabres, and certainly year 6 under this front office's watch. To me, if you're an owner and you're not aware of how long rebuilds should take, you're being sold a song. And by the way, we kind of saw that. You look in the division. We talked about this team as a comparable for several years now. The Senators were a 7-year rebuild. It was painful. It was clear the front office, despite acquiring valuable, soon-to-be impact prospects, and you could see what they were building in the covers, and you could see the talent coming through, and they finally broke through this year. But you never had any confidence in the prior general manager, none whatsoever, and eventually he was fired. And I do wonder why that wasn't the case this summer. But it sounds like they're going to run it back.
Did some quick math. Travis mentioned his age, so he was 17. Or maybe had just turned 18 when the Sabres last won a round. That would have been in the 07 playoffs when I was 35, which is Travis's current age.
I was getting ready to ship off to college, so that is correct. And I may or may not have remembered those playoffs, by the way, for any number of reasons.
Well, listen, anytime you want a refresher, that's all we know about. Right. Don't ask me what happened in the last decade, but I'll tell you 2007 up and down.
I tell everyone I know the WGR guys can break down the 2006-07 Stanley Cup playoffs like no other group can.
I think I could probably tell you every final score of every one of those games, both years. I think I probably could. But let's not do that. Travis, just before you go, a quick Bills thought. I feel like there are fair, critical type questions about their build, but all of them just get smacked down by what happened last year, unless you want to take it into the singular sample of the playoffs or the fourth quarter of the Kansas City game or something. But a lot of run again in here with wide receiver and overall offensive talent that just is sort of like maybe by some laughed at because of, last year's offensive and team success?
I haven't been on yet to ask you guys. I know you guys are just adjacent. I wish I was on a little closer to ask you why they didn't go receiver at the draft. I will say, I actually thought that was a really good, typical, team that's won all the time. You're arguing at the margins. And I by the way, I thought Jeremy and those guys made a fair point. If you ask me as just a fan on the sidelines, right? What is the area of concern? It's if Keon Coleman doesn't take a step forward this year, it's not that I don't like their wide receivers, and it's not that I don't think they can score a ton of points. But the argument that being really typically made was basically we're set up so that it's not a need. It's a nice to have. I mean, I'm really stretching it, but I don't necessarily know if that's true. I mean, his point is totally valid that they were a scoring machine, and almost all of it is born from the quarterback on down. But you saw a couple games last year where they could. You don't have it's a standard X receiver in the lineup, and if Keon Coleman doesn't become that guy, and he's just a guy out there, I still think they're a little thin at receiver, in terms of the personnel they may need. But I think you look around the rest of the wide receiver room and you're yeah, there's plenty of talent here. We have a humanoid at quarterback. We can make this work. I will tell you this. I was not opposed to their very draft heavy, we're going to get heavy in the box and attack the quarterback style at the draft. Whether that was, hey, we went after BPAs or this was a need or a combination of the two, the part of that team that always gave me the most heartburn, and I think has been true for 2-3 years now, is whenever they play a high-end team, the question of where did the pass rush go was common question, right? And obviously the Von Miller deal didn't really work out. And they have talent on the defensive line, but I loved going aggressive and going after and getting TJ Sanders. I love them filling the cornerback need in the first round. I think they had to address the defense, so I thought they did a great job at the draft. I think the wide receiver piece is the only part that gives me a little heartburn. But to Bean's credit, in his fairness, this is earned equity. His point is totally valid. The offense can score. They've shown they can score. They've never really had a problem scoring. You just would really hope that either Coleman or especially Kincaid takes a big step forward this year. So we will find out about that.
Travis, so great to talk to you again. Thanks so much.
Take care, guys.
Travis Yost,